right.
Okay, let's get to our guest then, shall we?
El Lunchador. Was that his name?
It's not Lunchador. You're already thinking about lunch. It's Luchador. It's a WWF today. Let's go for it. Are you there, Luchador?
Hello, Kenny, Stephen. How are you?
All right. Welcome to the show. First of all, let's explain who you are, your name, who you represent, and then we'll get into the meat and bones of it as such.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to address the U.S. Soccer Nation on these important issues. But I am the Nordecke Luchador, and I represent the Crew Soccer Nation, and I represent all working people in the United States who support the Players Union in their struggle for economic justice in this current situation we have regarding the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, so I guess the most important thing that seems to be getting covered is the players' rights. They want, they don't want to be tied to the club even when the contract runs out. But let's go first to what the minimum wage should be. What are they actually fighting over here with the minimum wage? Tell us what you think that should be for a football player.
Well, that's a good question to start with, Kenny, because the fact is this is not about wages. And that's a common misconception that has been perpetuated, I think, by the owners, perhaps unintentionally by the media. This dispute is not about money at its heart. This dispute is about rights for the workers, the players, and the MLS Players Union. As it currently is structured, this league has all of the cards stacked in favor of the owners. And that worked. That worked for the first few years. You could argue it worked for the first 10 years and gave us a viable league.
Right.
But the fact is the players are now saying that we need to adjust the way that rights are structured, adjust the way that contracts are honored so that the players have more agency, so that the players have more freedom of movement. And at the end of the day, yes, that does affect the bottom line. That can affect the finances. Of course, it's going to affect the finances of the league, but there's no evidence to suggest that we can't have some movement on that issue, still have a viable league, and honor the contracts of the players, and honor the players as workers and as human beings.
Okay, let's stop you right there, because tell us, because this is what I'm having trouble getting the specifics of. Tell us if money is not what is at the heart of this, and I'm aware of that, although I think it also should be, along with contracts and players' rights. What are the rights they want protected? Now, I know you're on one side, the union side, but give us the argument for both sides.
Yeah, or maybe even give us the perfect example of a player whose contract is ran out and can't move until the club tell him where he can move to.
Well, let's start with since you invited me to offer the perspective of the owners, let's start with their perspective. There's an article in the Los Angeles Times today that quotes one of the most powerful owners of
Lewicki,
yep. As basically bitch-slapping the players and saying, how dare they?
Yeah, I seen it. I read it.
How dare the players step up and say anything and try and assert any type of agency or freedom of movement in this league, and we can only take him at his word. And what he says in that article published today is essentially their argument is we built this league with our capital, and therefore the players need to shut up.
Right. So this is we would like this to be communist China.
Well, it's communistic football. There's no question about it. And he's also making out that the players' union are childish. It is indeed him, is it not, that's being childish by saying we could have thrown the towel in 5 times.
Well, I thought that was at the very least, that was an ill-advised comment. And I don't know if I would say he's being childish, but he's not helping his cause. He's not helping his cause.
And let's be honest, if they didn't see light at the end of the rainbow, they would have.
Yeah.
Well, light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay, carry on, Luchador, please.
Well, okay, so what do the players want? I have to tell you, I'm not a player. I have many friends who are players. I do not represent the union in an official capacity.
Right.
But I am pretty plugged into what's going on here, and I can tell you that what the players want is, number one, they want guaranteed contracts. And they want guaranteed contracts for all of their members. Under the current structure, there are semi-guaranteed contracts, and there are what, for all intents and purposes, are non-guaranteed contracts. And what the players want is and there's wiggle room here. This is why this is frustrating for fans who want to see the season start, is there's plenty of room for the owners to negotiate and offer the players at least incremental progress towards a league that's structured more along the lines of most other football leagues in the world.
Okay,
but that's the first thing they want is guaranteed contracts.
Okay, so how does one get a semi-guaranteed contract and how does one get a non-guaranteed contract? What is the difference in that player?
Well, as I understand it, how one gets it is determined by the individual's value in the marketplace, and it's part of the negotiation process when a player enters into the league. And the higher valued players, like Landon Donovan and David Beckham and Guillermo Barros Schelotto, they are in a better position to negotiate these semi-guaranteed contracts. The lower value players, and when I say lower value, of course, I mean just from a purely economic standpoint, players like take Steven Lenhart for the Columbus Crew, an amazingly talented player that scored 2 goals last week against Toluca to bring the Crew even in the Champions League play here in Columbus. It's my understanding he does not have even a semi-guaranteed contract. Which means that if he were to sustain some type of catastrophic injury between now and July 1, the Crew, the league, under our single entity system, would be in a position to cut him from the roster and not pay him, but retain the rights to him, so that
unbelievable.
If he were to have a miraculous recovery and by midseason be in better shape, but they still didn't want him, they own his ass. You know, he can't go out and negotiate elsewhere. He can't even go down to the USL or elsewhere. That's the type of indentured servitude that the MLS has created here, and it's unfair.
And by the way, that's actually the exact term. It's indentured servitude. Look, I've said on this show for the better part of 8 years that I thought Major League, the MLS stood for Major League Slavery, and and it's interesting because reading Leiwecke's comments in the Times today, I'm absolutely right. They believe, look what we've done for you and for football. You've got no right. We should be able to treat you. Essentially, what he's saying is, we've put $300 million into this. We should be able to treat you any way we want.
It's the classic capitalist argument. You know, if you look at our website, we use some hyperbole. We use some rhetoric that is hyperbole. And oftentimes we will speak in Marxist terms. We're doing that to make the point, that this is a system that is so unfair as to be 19th century. And to use Marxist rhetoric further, I would say that the argument made by Leiwecke in today's paper is the argument that was made by union bosses in the early 20th, late 19th, early 20th century that basically says, we control the means of production, so put up or shut up.
Okay, the 383-2 or 350-2, I'm not even sure that's a correct statement, but there is this number 2 people out there who are against the strike. Are the players backing a strike or are they authorizing a strike? There's a difference here, isn't there?
Well, there is a difference, and it's a difference that hopefully we won't have to find out, because hopefully the owners will come to their senses and this thing will be averted before the deadline. But there is a lot of different information out there. As you pointed out, even the vote that was taken, we don't have exact accurate numbers on, because it is a closed vote.
Right.
We don't know for sure. We don't even know for sure which deadline has been set. I don't know if you've noticed, but there have been conflicting reports on that.
23rd or the 24th.
Jeff Carlisle and ESPN reported that it's 12:01 on March 23rd. It's being widely reported today that it actually is the day that the season starts, which would be the first regularly scheduled MLS game on March 25th. So we don't know for sure. My sources tell me that earlier 23rd date is looking pretty solid. That's our countdown clock on luchametric.com that we've put is tied to that earlier date, but we don't know for sure.
Okay, well,